Hi everybody. I just want to give you this quick video going over 10.1 and 10.3. This is a very short unit, and these two sections are straightforward. The 10.2 parabolas is a bit more complicated, so that will be separate. So let's just look at 10.1. All this one asks you to do is to identify the different conic sections. And there's four main types. Two of them are circles and parabolas, which we will be discussing separately. The other two are ellipses, and this guy right here on the left is an ellipse, and hyperbola, which is this guy on the right here. Okay, which we won't be going into detail, but all you have to be able to do is identify them by name. So for example, if I gave you this graph right here, be able to identify this is an ellipse. If I give you this graph on the right here, be able to identify it as a hyperbola. And then be able to identify the centers and domain and range. Okay, now these graphs, the center on an ellipse is fairly straightforward. It's just right in the middle of the graph. Doesn't have to be at 0, 0, although it is in this case. And remember, domain and range is basically all the possible x values, all the possible y values. So looking at the ellipse, fairly straightforward, right? So this one, we're going from an x of -4 on the left, all the way over to 4 on the right. So domain is from -4 to 4. Range, well, it goes from -2 up to +2 in terms of y. So that's your range. Now hyperbolas. Now there's two different types of hyperbolas. There's this one right here, which opens left and right. They can also open like this, up and down too. Either way works. Okay, that does influence how you interpret domain and range, though. Okay, but the basic idea is still the same. Now with hyperbolas, you still do have a center, right? And it's always just the point that's exactly in between the two, they're called arms of your hyperbola. Okay, in this case, well, it's still centered right at 0, 0. Okay, at 0, 0 equidistant from both of these two parts of the graph, right? Where the arms begin to branch out there. Now, domain and range, you need to be a little bit careful on this one, okay? So let's think about domain. Okay? Remember, domain is where the possible x values are. So you see, the graph does not exist from here to here, okay? And those points, let's say that's a -2 right here in terms of x. That's a +2 right there in terms of x, okay? So where this graph does exist, however, is from, well, it exists for basically from -infinity all the way up to -2. And so that's that right there. And then it does not exist from -2 to 2, but it does exist starting at 2 to everything forward to that up to infinity. Okay? So you're going to need kind of a two-part domain right there. Okay? Now, range, well, this graph goes up forever. That parabola keeps on going up and up and up. That little parabola here goes up and up and up. Yes, this one on the right also does the same thing. It's going to keep on going up and down forever, basically. So the range is basically all real numbers. All right? And that's all you really need to do for identifying 10.1, right? Just identifying conic sections. Let's take a quick look at 10.3. Okay, so 10.3 is all about circles. And this one's mainly all you got to be able to do is recognize the equation and how to interpret the equation. Fairly straightforward. So the equation is x minus h, quantity squared, plus the quantity y minus k squared equals r squared. Okay, so with this one, the main thing you need to recognize is you have that h and k again, okay? So as usual, the h and the k determine where the center of our graph is going to be, all right? It's kind of the shifting factors of our graph. Remember, h is kind of our x shift, k is kind of our y shift, right? And there's going to be a number on the right here r squared, and that's going to be the radius. So, for example, you could get an equation of a circle that looks like this. So, if we want to find the center and the radius, well, we just look at the equation. It's in standard form, so there's nothing we need to do. I see an x minus 6. Well, okay, minus h. That means the coordinates of our circle, well, our x-coordinate is going to be 6. Then they look at the y. Well, there's nothing in there. It's just y squared. Well, that means k is 0. So the center of the circle is going to be at 6, 0. Okay, so if I graph it over here, I'm just going to put the center as a blue dot right there. And now I just need to find the radius of my circle. Okay, so I see a 64 right here. Okay, so radius is not 64 though. Remember, that's r squared, so I just need to take the square root. Well, the square root of 64 is, of course, 8. Right? So, sketching this out, I'm going to do the best I can. I'm not very good at freehanding circles, but basically, I'm going to put a point up, down, left, right from the center of 8 and do my best to draw in a circle. So there's my, again, my center is right here. So I'm going to put a dot up 8 from that. Like right about there. Go to the right 8. Already I can see it's not going to look very good, but you get the idea. Okay, so go down to negative 8 and go left 8 as well from 6 to negative 2. Okay, well, and it's vaguely circle-like, but it's hard to do it when you're doing it by hand. If you have graph paper, this is much easier to do. Okay, it helps out. On the test, I won't take points off if it's not perfect. Just do the best you can. Okay, all right. Thank you, guys. So do your best in the assignment, and I will talk to you later. Bye.